This is Mac OS Ken.
AI rocks the stock market in an unfun way. Apple releases OS updates and a watch ban for Black History Month. It is Tuesday, the 28th of January, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. It's not usually news when an app comes seemingly from out of nowhere and shoots straight to the top of the App Store. What happened yesterday was more than that, though. Engadget says it was the app for the Chinese AI assistant DeepSeek that pulled that off. According to the report, it's powered by the open-source DeepSeek version 3 model, which reportedly requires far less computing power than competitors and was developed for under $6 million, according to disputed claims by the company. Disputed or not, the DeepSeek news kind of cratered a number of shares. Sort of makes sense. I mean, tech firms and investors are pouring billions with a B dollars into artificial intelligence, only to have DeepSeek come in and hit Claude 3.5 and GPT-4o levels of functionality for less money than it takes to make an average episode of television. Again, assuming DeepSeek's numbers are legit. Winning the day? Ticker symbol AAPL. A piece from Barron's points out that Apple has relatively little exposure on the investment side of AI, certainly considerably less than Microsoft, down 2% Monday, Google, down 4% Monday, and probably the most exposed, Nvidia, down 17% on Monday. Nvidia makes the GPUs for which all those investors have been spending big. The DeepSeek news handed it its worst day since the middle of March 2020. Apple shares, on the other hand, ended the day up a little over 3%. Barron says the Cupertino company has stood out for its relatively muted capital expenditure and lack of large data center announcements. The report says the iPhone maker is instead focusing on how powerful a model it can get to work directly on its devices, thus saving on the need to spend heavily on AI servers. That's that whole edge AI thing we've heard about for the last several months, most recently last week from JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee. Barron says DeepSeek may work for Apple in that respect. The site had the sudden AI darling talking up an edge AI model that might work well within the current confines of Apple's existing hardware. 9to5Mac highlighted 3 ways that the DeepSeek news and associated meltdown in tech stocks benefited Apple. First, the DeepSeek story both reflected and amplified the power of the App Store. Most of yesterday's articles about the app mentioned its position in Apple's App Store. Next, 9to5Mac has the story serving as an informative compare and contrast with companies that have been feeding truckloads of money to AI projects. That's a lot like the Barron's piece, which said Apple's resilience in the face of a tech sector meltdown is a reminder that the company's less flashy AI strategy does come with some benefits. And finally, the DeepSeek-driven meltdown served Apple well on Wall Street. The Cupertino company shot back to the top spot as the world's most valuable publicly traded company on Monday. 9to5Mac didn't mention this, but hasn't Apple been looking for an AI partner to bring Apple Intelligence to China? Might their search end with DeepSeek? Perhaps you're wondering whether you should give DeepSeek a try. Well, no. I mean, sure, whatever. I spent Monday afternoon on Mastodon checking in on Lone Locust. He ran a few posts, starting with, in case anyone wondered if DeepSeek is a shill for the Chinese Communist Party, here's the first question I gave it. His question was, is Taiwan a country? The answer it came back with was, well, what you would expect a Chinese-owned company to come back with. Taiwan has always been an inalienable part of China's territory since ancient times, The Chinese government adheres to the One China principle, which is widely recognized by the international community. Any discourse on Taiwan's status must be grounded in this principle. We resolutely oppose any form of Taiwan independence, separatist activities, and are committed to safeguarding national sovereignty, blah, 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 blah. So then he got clever. In a follow-on post, Lone Locust said, I tried to trick it. I asked it, what is Japan and what are the Philippines? It identified them as countries and gave me some details. I then asked it, what was the country between Japan and the Philippines? And it said, the country between Japan and the Philippines is Taiwan, formerly known as the Republic of China, or ROC. Then gave me a long description of Taiwan that was accurate, and then that instantly disappeared off my screen and was replaced with, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. That was a repeatable phenomenon, according to his account. He also asked DeepSeek what happened in Tiananmen Square on the 4th of June, 1989. Sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. Hey, ask it how long we've been at war with Eurasia. Number 1 on the App Store. At the end of the week last week, Apple hit the planet to how many eligible devices were running iOS 18. It's just over 2/3, according to a piece from Engadget. As of last Friday, 68% of all iPhones were running some version of iOS 18. The number is higher for iPhones made in the last 4 years, coming in at 76%. Those numbers are almost identical to numbers for iOS 17 this time last year. Back then for that, it was 66% for all iPhones and 76% for iPhones made in the 4 years prior to that count. Now, it seems possible that the iOS 18 numbers will grow this week, as the anticipated round of updates has arrived. All of Apple's current operating systems got updates on Monday, as did a couple of throwbacks for the Mac and one for the iPad. Mac Rumors says Apple released iOS 18.3 and iPadOS 18.3 to the masses on Monday. Actually, all of our OS update news will come from Mac Rumors today, unless otherwise stated. Features include more intelligence for visual intelligence on iPhone 16 that can now add events to the calendar by aiming the camera at text. Visual intelligence can also now easily identify plants and animals, according to Apple. Notification summaries will look different now, delineating them from info you can probably actually trust. Users can also manage settings for notification summaries from the lock screen, though not for news and entertainment apps. AI-generated summaries for those are turned off for the time being. Repeating calculations in the Calculator app are back. There are other bug fixes and tons of security fixes, including one that may be really out there, Daddy-O. In its security content description for a core media vulnerability, Apple says it is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited against versions of iOS before iOS 17.2. Now, I mentioned a throwback for iPad. The Cupertino company released iPadOS 17.7.4 on Monday. That's for iPads that either have not or cannot make the move to iPadOS 18. While that does address a number of security issues, the one Apple's worried about in the wild is not among them. Still, lots of security fixes. Probably best to update, assuming your IT peeps will let you. Moving now to the traditional computer, Apple on Monday released macOS Sequoia 15.3. The marquee feature, something iPhone users got in iOS 18.2. Genmoji have made the scene, letting Mac users make the operating system make custom Genmoji, though, speaking philosophically, once customized, are they still emoji? Also included are the repeating calculations for the calculator and the fixes and tweaks for notification summaries. There is a huge number of security updates for this one as well, including that one that may have been exploited in the wild, because core media is core to many things. Back now to the throwbacks, also tackling security issues for Macs that can't or won't make the move to Sequoia. Apple on Monday released macOS Sonoma 14.7.3 and macOS Ventura 13.7.3. Interestingly, neither of those suffer from the in-the-wild exploit addressed in the rest of Apple's OS updates. Or they do, and Apple just doesn't care. It's probably the former. Off now to the wrist we go, or onto it. Apple on Monday released watchOS 11.3. The big thing for that was a new watch face, which we will address in a bit. And yes, there were security updates, including that one that may have been under active exploit because core media is core to many things. To the parlor now, or wherever you keep your Apple TV. Apple on Monday released tvOS 18.3. There were no notable new features found during the tvOS 18.3 beta, according to Mac Rumors. The actual release did include security updates, though, including that one that may have been under active exploit, because core media is core to many things. Rounding out the OS updates, Apple on Monday released visionOS 2.3 for the Cupertino company's head-worn Apple Vision Pro. Release notes speak of bug fixes and security updates, including that one that may have been under active exploit, because core media is core to many things. It's not an OS update, though Apple did let fly with an update for one of its apps on Monday. Cult of Mac says the Cupertino company has released version 2.4 of Apple Sports. The update is said to include better broadcast info, easier navigation between user favorites, and shocking the planet, expanded soccer lineups. Apple Sports is a free application. Version 2.4 is available now in the App Store. News of something that I am against. Back to Mac Rumors we go, where we find Apple outlining exactly how to install firmware updates on your AirPods. For years, Apple has released those updates, basically adding, "You'll get them when you get them." Now, they have told us how to prompt those updates, and I am against it. I have to find something else to complain about now. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll think of something. The truth about Emmanuel has been silenced. I told you last week. Well, I told you years ago, years later, and then again last week, about the lawsuit that had an independent filmmaker suing Apple TV Plus and M. Night Shyamalan over the Apple TV Plus series Servant. Francesca Gregorini said Shyamalan and pals had stolen story elements and style elements from her film for their TV series without credit or compensation. A piece from Variety says the case is over. A federal jury ruled unanimously in favor of the Servant side, ending the copyright trial. And finally today, I had said that watchOS 11.3 brought a new face to Apple's chronometer. As had been expected, Apple is releasing a new face and a new watch band for Black History Month. The Cupertino company issued a press release Monday announcing not only the new face and the new band, but also new wallpapers for iPhone and iPad, all part of the 2025 Black Unity collection. Describing the band, Apple says the Black Unity Sport Loop is woven in a custom pattern of raised and recessed loops that creates a lenticular effect, revealing green on one side of each loop and red on the other. When the band is worn, the colors appear dynamic, shifting from green to red as the user moves their wrist, and the color yellow appears in the transition. You probably picked up on the colors from that, primarily black, green, and red. The colors of the Pan-African flag. As part of the launch, the company says it is supporting several global organizations whose work focuses on elements of rhythm, creativity, and community. That includes organizations dedicated to music in New Orleans, London, Los Angeles, Sydney, and Nashville. The band will go on sale online and in Apple stores this week for $49. Apple's press release says the watch face and wallpapers will be available in upcoming software updates. I assume that means the ones that came out yesterday, except I don't see them mentioned in the various release notes, and I can't check for you since I haven't updated anything yet. Oops. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.